First of all, I just want to, one of the things that attracted me several years ago to become involved with Take Back Your Time were as Delaney was saying, that the humor combined with the real passion and commitment. And I'm a fan of pulling out ads from on-flight magazines to make my points in lectures. So I just want to show a few that I think sort of encapsulate some of the contextual issues that we've already been hearing about quite a bit that lead people into the speeded up life and to not feel that they can take a full vacation. So we've got all the stuff about running around and the worshiping of speed, and people get into a seemingly exciting life, which is actually rather boring because it's all going at the same pace and the same rhythm. And we're obsessed with time. FaceTime at work is so important. Here's the sort of to-do list. Work, eat, sleep, and breathe. We have to be reminded now. And you can go to many psychology workshops that are focused on mindfulness, where the essential message is breathe, and teach your clients how to breathe. Never mind sleep. We're multitasking. Literally, you may laugh, but I have a client who's an investment banker who says that first thing he does in the morning, he goes, as he says, he's British, he goes into the crapper and he checks his email where no one will bother me. And he's actually lost his BlackBerry a few times in the toilet. Yeah. So, how we can become unavailable. Usually we used to be on flights, but as we know from in-flight magazines, I just found another one, that's not the case anymore. It's my time, my space, my way. Finally, I can get some work done on that long flight to Tokyo or whatever. Yes, American Airlines is telling us to rescue our vacation days from extinction, but if we take our laptops, or at least our thoughts of our work, onto the golf course or to the mountains, we're probably in trouble. And in fact, there's some research that shows, as I'll be talking about, that having lots of particularly negative thoughts and stressful thoughts about work while on vacation actually decreases the positive impact, as you might imagine, because it just becomes a time for rumination. So I'm going to, John had said to all of us, and none of us have obeyed so far, that we should not show PowerPoint. Right? Didn't he? Right? So I went through this whole laborious thing of, I did create a PowerPoint, and I will have a handout for all this. I'm going to show it, but the reason that we don't like to use PowerPoint that much is sometimes it's not engaging. I would argue that our speakers so far have been tremendously engaging despite their PowerPoint, or maybe along with. But in order to continue to make this engaging, I'm going to do something a little bit silly with my bullet points, as we call them. That's something sad about the fact that we call our presentations bullet points, right? That's how we're going to have impact on people. I want to say that my perspective, I'm a family psychologist and contextual and systemic therapist. I teach that at City College, and I practice it in my private practice. And so without getting into a whole long discussion about the contextual approach, when I think about, John had asked me to talk about depression and psychological disorders, but I always think about those in their context, and there are many levels of context, and changes in the relationship between the person and the context are usually critical to ameliorating depression, anxiety disorders, somatic disorders, and so forth. And also, we've heard a little bit, and I've talked with Cecile about this too, the power of narrative. There's a whole school of therapy these days that talks about the power of the stories that we tell ourselves and that are told about us. And think about, as Joe kind of got to, the story of a life, as you reflect on your life, that is a story of vacations lost, vacations denied, vacations spoiled by emergency emails or phone calls or being drawn back to the office. And those stories have an impact on our stress levels, on our relationships, as opposed to stories about preserving time for life. So it's not just the doing of it, but it's the telling the stories about what we do that I think is important, and we focus on that quite a bit in contemporary systemic therapy. I have an article, if you want to look at this rather complex and out of focus thing about everything that affects everything in terms of mental health, wellness, and disorder. So I'll pass over that. It's in the handout. One of the questions is always a differential diagnosis question. Is it depression or is it burnout? Like the old question, is it Memorex or is it Ella Fitzgerald? What are these? Just look at this list of symptoms: depressed mood, irritability, hopelessness and helplessness, sleep disturbance, low energy or fatigue, feeling agitated or restless, inappropriate feelings of worthlessness or guilt, indecisiveness and difficulty concentrating, loss of interest, motivation for activities once desired, appetite disturbance, recurring thoughts of death and possibly suicide. So up to maybe the last one, or maybe even the last one, these could describe, I would say, if you look at the official definition of burnout and the research on it, this could describe burnout just as well as depression. So it's very important in our clinical practices and in my teaching of students, to not immediately pathologize the individual, but to think about what about their relationship to their work life, including their work at home life, because I want to, make sure that we remember those people, mostly women still, whose work is mostly in the home, whether they are also working in jobs that are equally paying dual earner couples. Women are still doing 2 to 3 times the amount of domestic chores and childcare, and that leads to burnout, even though those critters can be and are very pleasurable in many ways. So these are all symptoms of depression, but they could easily be, also descriptions of burnout. I won't read through all this, but just, if you look at all of this, all of these symptoms have been described by my clients who really are suffering from a problem in their relationship to their speeded up life and their work life. So it's really important that we not immediately jump to making diagnoses and treatment without thinking about one of the treatments being changing people's relationship to the way they work, to where they work, and to their capacity to take breaks and rest. So in fact, here's an official description of burnout. Can we get this a little more focused back there, George? Anyway, you can see that there's a lot of overlap.